FC United of Manchester. A club born out of anger. A club born out of betrayal. A club born out of rebellion. But why does this club exist?
My name's George Baker. I'm a founder member of FC United and a former board member from 2016 to 2018. I'm currently a volunteer on the communications team. So the idea was first mooted around 1999 when Rupert Murdoch was attempting to take over Manchester United. We didn't want the club to fall into private hands. The idea of a breakaway club where the fans could be in control was first mooted around then. It came back around January 2005 with an article in the fanzine Red issue. The premise was that if the Glazers managed to complete their takeover of Manchester United, then a breakaway club will be set up in protest.
We asked George about how big the fan culture is at FC United of Manchester.
I think football had been taken away from the working man, the common supporter. As wonderful as the success that Manchester United had was for us Manchester United fans, it came at a price in the sense that a lot of fans found themselves priced out. They found the Old Trafford atmosphere to be faltering. They were tired of the kick-off times changing all the time to suit TV money. Tired of the overzealous policing, the overzealous stewarding. It was drifting more and more away from what a lot of people wanted from a traditional football experience. So the idea of setting up a club in the image of what Manchester United should be appealed to a lot of people, because a lot of people just didn't feel like they were able to support United watching it on a TV screen all the time. The initial goal of FC United was to provide an affordable football club for the people of Manchester, and specifically Manchester United fans that found themselves no longer in tune with what football had turned into, and who wanted to get back to its traditional roots and to be able to rock up to the turnstiles with your friends, stand where you like or sit where you like, whichever your preference is, and just cheer on a team that is in the image of what Manchester United should be, and one that is ours, one that we control.
Why do you follow FC United of Manchester?
I had a season ticket until the Glazers took over at Old Trafford. When they took over buying a club with money they didn't have. Just a simple thing really.
Well, you only have to look around you to see the sense of community in this place. I mean, it's a fantastic football club to support. The football's not great, let's be honest. The football has never really been that great. But the sense of community and the sense of real football sort of coming back in this place, it makes it a magical place to come and watch football.
The Glazer family brought Manchester United in 2005, with most of the 800 million used to buy the football club coming from loans. This idea of loaning money to buy a football club was frowned upon by Manchester United supporters, and after continuous poor decisions over the past 2 decades, including joining a breakaway Super League, Manchester United fans are angrier than ever at the Glazers' leadership. We asked FC United fans on their opinions of the Glazers and if the takeover was a contributing factor to leaving Manchester United behind.
Oh, I'm not a massive fan of them. I mean, I'm not a United fan either, but from the outside looking in, they're just what's wrong with modern football, like taking away from the club, and just the commercialisation of football just needs to be sort of slowed down, and they're a perfect example of that.
I mean, obviously not keen now. When they first took over, I was unsure, but yeah, I mean, Premier League as a whole now is pretty corrupt.
Where'd you start? I mean, they bled a football club dry, and I mean, through that death, technically, of a football club comes life through this football club, and it makes them the worst of the worst, because they're in it for the profitability, not for the footballing side or the fan side. I don't think they're really nice people at all.
I despise what they've done to what was my club.
Yeah.
It's not my club anymore. They drove me away.
Do you feel like there's a ceiling to a club like FC United, and if so, what do you feel like it is?
Well, the ceiling is obviously we have an average attendance of between 1,500 and 2,000 now. It's kind of levelled out at that point after 20 years. And obviously those attendances could grow if we're more successful, but the fan ownership aspect means that a lot of big money benefactors just aren't interested in FC United, and that's the way we want it. But obviously with more and more clubs, particularly non-league, becoming extra competitive these days, there's More and more clubs being bought out by big owners, having a lot of money put into them, more and more teams further down the non-league pyramid becoming full-time. We hope that perhaps one day we'll be able to become a full-time team and compete with the best of them in perhaps the National League at the top end of non-league. But there's only so far we can go with regards to the fan ownership aspect, I imagine. But then again, you never know, strange things happen in football all the time.
And then last but not least, if you could deliver one message to the Premier League, what would it be?
Remember your roots. It's not all about money. If you think of,
I would have a wage cap, maybe, because it's just got ridiculous. It doesn't matter how much money goes into the Premier League; it all goes on to players.
Yeah, you can see it's not. They say it's going to trickle down, but you can see it's not going.
Yeah, and the fans have been forgotten.
Well, there's got to be some sort of sharing of the wealth, because the Premier League brings in more money than any football league on the planet, and some of that money comes down in parachute payments to clubs who are recently relegated, but you don't see it come down to places like this.
It's not really what football's about. You know, it's about your mates meeting people, going out for a drink, having a pint, having a laugh and a joke.
How can you reverse it? The money's there, but we're here, and that's our choice.
Well, it needs to become less commercialised, so I'd say that, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But yeah, start putting the fans first and start sort of, reducing commercialisation basically.
If you take your fans for granted, there'll be more examples of FC United. Perhaps not as overt as us, forming our own club and remaining fan-owned, but more and more people will drift to non-league to support their local teams because they care more about getting people through the door, and once they do get people through the door, they look after them a lot better than the Premier League clubs. So I would just say to them, don't take the fans for granted, because fan power can take all manner of manifestations. Just look at the protests for the European Super League and how fans, not the money men, put a stop to that. That can happen again, so don't take the fans for granted.